So we thought we'd wake you up a little bit before lunch, and instead of doing the typical stuff where everybody intros each other, because me and Oded know each other for what, 15, 20 years? Yeah, it's been a while. So instead of doing the typical, oh, I'll do my intros, you'll do the intros, we'll intro each other and see if we make it, like if we hit or it's a miss. What do you think, Oded?
So Itamar, we are trying here something different because Itamar and I have a dream of doing a podcast together. Be nice to us.
Please.
Itamar is a sole GP, which is very, very unique, of a fund called Recursive.
Recursive.
And this is part of it, how to say it right in English. And been backing several unicorns that really exited. I remember several of them. And over the years, we've been looking at each other. He was like a real cookie cutter from Berkeley into one of the permanent VC funds in Sandy Road. One of the only VCs, Israeli VCs, and this is why I listen to him a lot and I read his posts all the time, that really been into the process of how to make an investment. There's a lots of logic behind it. It's not just, hey, he's a nice guy, he was at A200. Yeah, probably, let's do it. It's a very methodological process of how you manage your fund, how you manage your portfolio, how you manage your investments, how you work with entrepreneur. So Itamar is a great role model for me to see probably one of the only Israelis who really turned to the mindset of Silicon Valley. And the outcome is also very impressive. I would also say that I have the pleasure to invest in his fund. He's one of my LPs, so it's a very both sides. And both of us like a lot to help Israeli entrepreneurs because we see this kind of gap all the time. Itamar more from the northern part, from San Francisco and Berkeley, and I'm more on the valley side. And we all the time meet Israelis to try to help them to bridge this gap.
So thank you. That first of all, you're giving me way too much credit. So thank you for that. Yeah, I've known Oded over 15 years, and outside of him being a tremendous mensch, he has a very interesting journey of journalist turned entrepreneur turned VC. Not necessarily in that order, but like a pretty impressive and unique background, right? Which I think is interesting. And then if you guys don't know J Ventures, definitely look it up. It's a super interesting concept in venture capital around building a community, a kibbutz, a VC kibbutz, which I've never seen before. So this is really Oded's kind of brainchild. And they make great investments. It's an awesome group that picks great companies to invest in and is making money together. But I think that's not the most important thing, and that's also why, that's not why Oded is here. Oded is here because he's putting together global Jewish communities, right, that are disconnected, and not just putting them together, also leveraging them to help Israel and help Israelis. And that's really unique, and we should all be thankful for Oded, for him to do that in helping entrepreneurs in Israel and outside of Israel.
You have the broken hand on that side. There are a few people from J Ventures. Raise your hand just that we'll see you.
How many?
Jorge is busy with his phone. But anyway. Okay, but let's dive into what we are here for.
Yeah, so I think we're here for, the thing we can help best with is for all the Israeli entrepreneurs out there who are thinking about coming over the Silicon Valley, raise money, and build your company here. Having done over 175 investments myself over the last 16 years, probably a third of them are Israeli related. We've learned along the way some of the common pitfalls and how you can really maximize your chances of success coming to Silicon Valley, raising money, and building companies. Sounds good?
Sounds good. Yeah. So maybe the first thing is, we are here in August. Is that a good time to come and raise money in Silicon Valley?
Oh, hell no. Most people are on vacation. They're traveling, and they're kind of disconnected. And you really want VCs to be on, on your deal, moving fast, figuring stuff out. So if somebody would ask me when to come to Silicon Valley and raise money, I'd say, yeah, start September 1st.
And don't come in December or November, because those are, and what we see always, it's a technical issue, but we just see Israeli entrepreneurs coming when it's convenient for them. They don't think when it's convenient for the other side, right? And now we are in favor of Israel because the resilience of Israeli companies, and we saw it after October 7th, is outstanding. My portfolio companies, we have 13 companies in Israel, all of them been outperforming in terms of revenues. This is what we really want to see. We want to see companies growing from 2.5 million to 5 to 10, 20. But they also attract funds like Insight Partners or NVP or Lightspeed or those ones. But it's not always easy to be Israeli. So where the gap between being Zionist and Israeli companies and where it's the right thing for you to do when you move to the US as a startup company. One of the things that Itamar and I, and by the way, other VC funds who are Israeli oriented, like Upwest, are talking a lot about, is where you should register your company. This should be an US entity or an Israeli entity. We are all Zionists, we all want it to be in Israel, but what's the consequences? And Itamar and I are talking a lot about USBS, which is even becoming now harder, I think, because Trump, in his beautiful law, made it much more attractive for entrepreneurs to make their entities in Delaware rather than in Israel. So let's talk about this maybe.
Yeah, so actually let's start from the start there. That's a very good point. So I still see a lot of Israeli companies making this mistake of domiciling in Israel. And from a Silicon Valley lens, from a VC lens, when you're building a scalable startup, that's actually a bad idea. It's a bad idea because you're reducing the number of VCs here in the US that would be open to backing you. It's a bad idea because it could negatively impact your chances of being, sold in an acquisition by an American player, having the IP in Israel instead of having the IP already in the US. Those are some hurdles that make it more difficult for your startup to succeed. And we all know that startup success to begin with is actually a very hard thing. Like the probability is kind of against you. So from my point of view, as an entrepreneur, your responsibility, your fiduciary duty as CEO, as founders of a company, is to maximize the odds of success. And unfortunately, in today's climate, that means that registering in the US is a better choice.
Yeah, I think it's coming to the US market to raise money. When you think that you will move to the US, you think that you will raise money in the US, you think you will sell your company in the US, you will recruit your employees in the US, and you're coming with your two hands tied behind your back, it's harder. So this is not about Zionism or not Zionism, just practical things, how you build your company in order to keep it partly in Israel with an R&D in Israel, which is something very, very legit in the United States. Even now, we didn't see any pushback for Israeli companies to have R&D centers in Israel. On the contrary, we do see admiration, I think, for the Israeli capabilities, mostly AI and cyber. Those are the main areas where we see it. Also, we saw defense and other areas that are on the peripheral. But having this company as a US entity, as a mother company, and to have the company in Israel is something that is important. I want to ask and discuss another thing. How you manage an American board versus an Israeli board, because I see it in a very different way. Less emotional, more, how do you see it? Do you see a difference?
Well, look, I think it goes to the fundamentals of, although Israelis and Americans are closer culturally than, I don't know, comparing maybe Chinese to Americans, there's still a big gap there. There's still a big cultural divide that, like anybody, for me, having moved here 16 years ago, took me a few years to kind of learn the difference, right? Like how to really engage, how to be most helpful, right? In sort of an American setting, right? And I think the same goes for boards, right? Often when I see board members, kind of Israeli board members, they're kind of, jumping ahead. They come from an operational background.
Very emotional kind of thing. It's very
they're trying to steer the boat a little bit. While, an American board would probably do stuff like ask tough questions, right? Or, it would be potentially more, not necessarily about what's said, but maybe about what's not said, right? And there's this expectation of performance that I think is much more deeply embedded into an American way of doing business, right? So it requires an adoption, not just for managing the board, but for any Israeli that's coming here to the US and wants to really accelerate their startups. I would really recommend spending a year or two just thinking and acting and learning about this cultural divide. Like, how should I change how I talk? how I do stuff to really be most successful here in the US.
I think the American boards are, if you're a good entrepreneur, you will work between the boards. You will speak with your board members and you will build this kind of thing. The Israeli boards are built in the boards, we saw it. But this is also about culture. And Itamar is talking about culture. One thing that we see is that Israeli companies move to the Silicon Valley or to New York, by the way, and remain Israelis. So the CRO, the CMO, the CTO, all the Cs are Israelis, and then you bring one expert in sales. The VP sales is an American one, and he doesn't fit in because the language, even if they speak in English, which I truly recommend all companies to keep a mentality of speaking in English and writing in English, he doesn't fit in. So if you build those companies, you moved here, the CEO moved here, the CTO stays in Israel, where's the VP product should be, for example? He should be an Israeli or an American. And those are fundamental things that will probably determine how your path of a new journey will end up as an Israeli company in America or an American company, Israeli company in that sense, right? You have anything to add?
No, I have a lot to add. So try and make this interesting. So just because we're quickly running out of time, I'll give just a few really good tips, I hope, that I've learned the hard way for Israel.
He has also tips about whole stories about VCs. I really encourage you to look at his LinkedIn and his podcast. Amazing. Yes.
So here's the few things that I tell Israelis which I think could help them succeed here. One is get out of your comfort zone, which means try to really embed yourself with the business ecosystem here, work with Americans, hire Americans, build a go-to-market team that's really fully American and embrace that and learn how to manage and work successfully with those people. One thing. Second thing, which is a very common mistake that I see Israeli founders do, they come here for a week doing like a fundraising roadshow and they think it's going to work. It's like, why do you think it's going to work? Nobody knows you. Like you're an unknown quantity here, right? You don't know the culture. You don't know who to talk with. So if you generally want to build a business here, if you generally want to raise money in Silicon Valley, you need to spend the time. And as a derivative of that,
to it for 1 second. Just yesterday, I got an email from one of our members who said, this company is coming to the Valley. They have an event. They will be in the morning. We're looking for a VC that we can meet afternoon, Friday. What? They just stand in line and just waiting for you to come in. And that's a mentality that sometimes it's very hard to overcome. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it is very hard. And it's also not how things actually work here. I mean, most of the people out here, we live here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we know that a lot of what's happening here is driven by serendipity. You meet one person and they introduce you to the other person, and because you're here and because you're local, you get all those amazing opportunities that build up over time. So that's the second thing. The third thing that I would say, which is very controversial, but I'll say it anyway, is that if you are targeting the US market as an Israeli startup, especially if you're building enterprise software and you're going to sell to B2B customers, the sooner you're going to have your go-to-market function, the sooner the CEO or whoever is leading sales moves to the US, the higher probability of success you have. Now, this is a hard conversation to have because I think both me and Oded, we don't want to see people leaving Israel. We love Israel. We're Zionists. We want to support Israel. But I believe that one of the best ways to support Israel is for startups, right? For startup success, is to send people over, move here as soon as possible so you actually understand how the customers think, how they talk, what they need. It will accelerate your go-to-market. It will increase your odds of success. So I think it's very important to consider moving as quickly as possible.
It's a 1,000,000% supporting. It depends sometimes on the industry, but in almost all cases, this is a 100% truth. Because we saw companies over the 20 years that we invest, you can really, if you can compare apples to apples, you see the difference. A company that was in Israel, the CEO couldn't go because the kids, because of the wife, whatever, or the husband couldn't. And you see a parallel company at the same time that did move. This one is $1 billion company. This one sold for 100 million in good case. It's just far away. You need to get to interaction. It needs to be continuous. It can't be one time off. We wanted to speak about lots of other things. We probably do it in the podcast that one day we'll do. But AI, defense tech, where it is, where it's not. One of the things that we saw here is that there are lots of companies, for example, in medical devices, biotech, and things like that. We need to understand how Silicon Valley is built. For example, biotech, I would go mostly to Boston. Boston is a great place to raise money for biotech companies. Medical devices is a problem anywhere. Not regardless, it's not because they hate us because we are Israelis. They hate medical devices anyway. There aren't just many investors in medical devices. For example, automotive had a hype, then had a low. Ag tech, very hard. The multiples are not very high. And then comes defense tech, because I believe that some of the speakers here were about defense tech. So just maybe a word about it, because AI is clear, and what you see in AI here in San Francisco and Berkeley is different from what you see in Israel, right? This is what we wanted to say also.
Yeah, it's true. But I think we're also running out of time, or at least that's the signal I got. So I'll just wrap it up by saying, if you had enough of the two of us, fine. If you like what you heard, follow me on LinkedIn. I try to write daily to help entrepreneurs. And more importantly, join J Ventures. You'll thank me later.
Perfect. Thank you.